You had a lot of strong opinions this week, Graeme, in our chats and in other places about like the media and about people covering MMA and kind of the, as you call it, the fake news out there. Do you want to just before we get into the nuts and bolts of the actual the fights, just the coverage of the fights these days and stuff like that. Do you want to throw out a few of your opinions there, Graeme, and let people know what you were thinking this week? Because there was a few different, I suppose, incidents this week that happened, and it was kind of a boiling point. And we had like the MMA awards, which are a farce every year and stuff, that came out. But do you want to throw out a few of your opinions there, Graeme, before we get going into the real MMA talk?
Well, yeah, always I've kind of been of the mind that the clickbaity stuff, or the kind of trying to get people to click with something that maybe is close to the truth but not the truth, is something that I never wanted to do. I never wanted anybody at Severe to do. Like, I would have said this to you and all the people very early on. This is the way we're going to do it, and we don't want any of this clickbaity stuff. And like you be saying the same to all the lads, like all the lads working with us on Severe. We've always wanted to do it that way, and unfortunately, a lot of people, especially the kind of social media kind of clout chasers, or the people who'll just chill on and will say something and they'll make a big thing out of it, saying this is definitely happening, or they'll take things and just completely run with it when it doesn't make sense from the actual knowledge they have, and they'll make assumptions and try to kind of be first rather than make sure they're correct. And the problem with this is people will click it, people will share it, people will talk about it more than they'll share a Severe MMA article where we give you the information straight up. We say, James Gallagher has booked to fight this guy on this date and in this event, and they last fought this time against this guy, and it's all facts. It's all like, unless we're calling it an opinion piece, we just lay it out straight to you, and that doesn't do the same amount of clicks that a controversial take or a guess that gets news out there that people might, or gets supposed news out there that people want to hear, and they know it'll happen up. Like, we could do that. Like, we could easily have back in at any stage over the last 12 years, we could have decided to do that and probably made hundreds of times multiples of the revenue we make. But it's just not the way we want to do it. And maybe people will think, well, you should do that, but there's certain times where you think, Jesus, maybe we should, but at the end of the day, you kind of got to stick to your kind of moral compass. And in my opinion, doing it the right way is very important, to have at least a few outlets in a space that are giving the facts straight out, and when they're giving an opinion, they're presenting it as they're giving an opinion. They're not presenting it as a factual thing. Yeah,
I've always been of the same mind, to be honest. Even if when I started with Severe, you said that to me straight away. These are the things we do, and this is the way we do it. And there's always things, I suppose, that maybe throughout the years people would maybe disagree on or look at editorially do things differently, but that wasn't one of them, I don't think, between the two of us, Graeme, anyway, ever, because I was always of the same mind, and I think it's a lot of it is to do with the reasons you cover MMA, or the reasons you kind of come into MMA. Like, some people come into MMA because they went to journalism school or whatever, and they want to be a journalist, and that there's absolutely no problem with that.
And the thing is, if you want to be a sports journalist and you're not really fussy about what sport it is, MMA is probably the easiest sport to just walk into. Just send a credential in. UFC 50-50 might credential you, write a few articles, they will credential you more than likely, and then you're in. So
yeah, and like James Lynch made kind of a video on this, and both of us spoke to James a little bit. I think he did a good job mostly on it, but a little bit clunky at times. But the point he was making, I think, at the end, that I disagreed with it at times, but I do get what he was saying now, was about like exactly what you were saying there, like people applying for credentials and acting like they are something, which is something that's been happening down through the years. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with lads who've been doing it for a good while, and let's say you've been doing it for a year or 18 months or whatever, and you apply for a credential, but you're not full time, or you're not. There's no problem with that. That's not the people. Those people should absolutely be doing it. But there is a good bit of that. But I actually think a bigger problem is sometimes like the opposite of that. People who've done it for a long time and are doing it the not the wrong way per se, but a way that is with what the people who consume the content or the piece of journalistic content even, I think should want or should should demand, I suppose, if you put it that way. Like, there's no amount of money could put me in a Jake Paul, Nathan Diaz.
You have a price. Everybody has a price. 100 million, go over there, promote that, no problem.
Here, right. If they gave me 100 million, yes. But I would never call myself a media member or anything like that again. I would never. I would just give it up. It'd be my price to retire from doing this. Like, it would. But there's multiple other things as well. Like, it's not just that as well. Like, because you could go along and you could watch that as a fan. Like, there's nothing wrong with that per se. Like, but the problem is, like, the way you approach things and the reason for it. Like, why is the reason we do it? The reason we do it is we love the sport of mixed martial arts. We're here in Ireland, and you started off covering all the Irish fighters, and I know we've spoken about this a few years ago when it was literally only the two of us covering MMA in Ireland there for a stretch of maybe a year or 18 months, and then the Ultra Angle boys came along and have taken that away from us, and it's been absolutely fantastic because we just didn't have time to do it justice, and the lads have really helped. But like, we felt at that time, and we spoke about, like, that we have a responsibility to cover those lads, like the lads, like the likes of Rhys McKee fighting at the time, or the likes of Paul Hughes, or whoever it might be, trying to get their way to where they are now. And if it wasn't for us, there'd be no one covering, and I'm not looking for a pat in the back here or anything, but that's the reason we're doing it. We have a responsibility to cover those people. And, have we lost money because of that responsibility to that? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it, though, the journalistic way we do it. If you want to sign up to our Patreon to help us out, absolutely. But even the Patreon, like, I feel bad about, like, pimping it out and stuff, and but asking people to sign up. And we had a
like, when you came to me with the idea years ago,
yeah.
I was like, online begging, I don't know if I could do this. Like,
I think
that was my first thought. I was like, oh God.
Yeah. The only way we agreed to it was by saying we will give people more than it's worth, like, and the amount of content we produce. I think anyone who signed up would probably agree to that we produce so much content, like, and that I was the same, like, and I didn't really want to do it either, but like, there's a point you reach where it's very hard to keep that going, like, it really, really is, because you're doing it for years and years and years, and you're like getting very, very little reward. And still, even with, like, I'm lucky now, I have Sherdog who keep me going, obviously, and then there's still isn't much coming in from Severe. Like, let's be honest, we all know that, and it's the same for most people out there, and it's very hard to keep going and keep doing it. But like, it's hard to say you wouldn't be doing it still, even if you were getting nothing for it. And is that the case for most people out there? I just don't think it is. And you can see that in their coverage. You can see that in what, not just their coverage, but what they cover and the way they talk about the sport. Like, loads of different things. The way, like, we would talk about something more niche on this podcast, which is, like, by far the biggest podcast in Europe ever, and one of the biggest podcasts in the world in terms of the numbers we get. Yeah, we talk about, if there's a good Irish MMA fight that happens, amateur, we would talk about it, or someone who's 2-0, 3-0, and maybe that's why people like it or whatever. But like, and we, I can tell you, spoiler alert, we won't be breaking down much of this Jake Paul, Nathan Diaz thing that happened, and that's the choice I suppose people take. Like, I don't know, and I don't want it to seem like we're looking down our nose at people or anything, but also, like, do you know what? I wouldn't mind an extra bit of support for us, for the people who are doing it right way. The likes of Ian as well, and Harry and the lads, and they're fucking breaking their arses the whole time, putting in the hours to do it the right way as well. It's, when you see all of this shit, and when you see everything that's coming out, like, look at the MMA awards as well. Like, they're a great example of this. Like, out of the 5 lads that are nominated, I think 4 of them have, like, either worked for promotions or worked for the broadcast partners in a combat sport or something. It's like, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Vote Nolan King, by the way, would be my thought there, but I don't know. What were your thoughts on that? Like, I know these awards, no one really gives a shit about them, but
I couldn't give a shit about the awards. Like, even like when I was nominated, was working on stuff for national, TV and film awards, and the Emmy and the Mayweather McGregor All Access thing, I just couldn't give a shit. So it's not like I'm looking down on people who are nominated because I'm not nominated or something like that. Don't get it the wrong way. I just don't care about stuff like that. I think it's awards like that are stupid. I just never like that stuff. So I just wouldn't be that into it. Like, I wouldn't care if we're nominated or not nominated, but stuff like that. I don't know. I just think, fighters only, what do they even do? Is it just, they just do an awards every year and they happen to have a media category, so people promote it because of that, or people talk about it because of that?
I think so, yeah.
That's basically it. Like, fighters only hasn't been relevant in MMA besides that for years, in my opinion, really. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but I don't think anybody's really getting their information from fighters only, from what I've seen, or from the bubble I'm in anyway. I don't know. Like,
I think people just take it seriously because, they don't take it seriously, but they look at it like that because they have like a night and, they hand out awards to people and stuff, but yeah, I think, look, we've spoken about this before, we won't dwell too much on it, but like, I think it is a bit of a farce.
Just another thing on what you were kind of saying, though, I think, for maybe the Irish scene and the UK scene, like, not to be bragging or anything, but I think we cover it better than SevereMMA has covered it better than anybody. I think because SevereMMA has been around for a long time, and it's kind of come up with the kind of last couple of generations of Irish especially, but also UK fighters that, giving them coverage when nobody else would. It's kind of just a given that we're there. It's kind of like unappreciated. I think, as Morrissey once said, you're going to miss me when I'm gone. The kind of thing. If SevereMMA was gone, then they'd realize kind of,
100%.
how much help we give these guys and getting to the UFC so early, like we're seeing now, or getting these chances on shows, or, things like that. And I'm not trying to, like, as you said, we're not trying to pat myself on the back. I think that's just like kind of an indisputable fact. I think if you look at like what we did with Conor, it'd be crazy to say that we didn't have a big impact on how popular he got and the sport got and stuff like that. So I think, it'd be nice to be appreciated by the people for that. But I think the people who are in the Irish MMA community for a long time know. But sometimes, fighters, you help them along the way and then they won't talk to you once they kind of make it.
Oh, that happens.
Kind of stupid Instagram pages and these, they'll talk to them. And that is a bit like, here, lads, come on, lads. Like, don't forget. But, that's the way of the world.
Yeah. There's been, and look, you know that's going to happen as well. Like, I won't forget about you when I get to the UFC, when I get ranked or whatever. And like, oh, really? Is that true? Yeah, okay. But no, you're like, you are
just
right.
Talk to my manager. Yeah, talk to my manager.
Yeah, here's an email address.
When did this start? I thought we were
Yeah. When did this happen? But I like, to be fair now, like, I think a lot of the fighters realize. I saw Reece McKee actually saying it the other day, and fair play to him for saying it, like, as well. But like, how could you not realize? Like, say someone look like someone like Paul Hughes now. Like, the amount of coverage we have given him has like really helped in the push together. Look at Neil Seary back in the day and all that, many other fighters as well. Like, and it's great to have those fighters to be able to cover. But like, as you said, like, and we'll move on after this. But the last one, just to agree with the point you just made there about, like, because we've been around for so long, I don't think people appreciate it. Like, it's the same a bit with the podcast. It's like, the people, someone starts a new podcast, their fifth new podcast in the last 6 years type of thing, and it's like, new podcast, this is great, and we've been here for the last 6 years, 7 years, whatever, just the same podcast, covering it the way we want to cover it for years and years and years, and it never gets like, retweet, here's the new podcast, and that's I'll be honest, that annoys me a little bit, right? And the rest of it doesn't really annoy me. I'm just kind of analysing the situation because we've been around long enough now, but that part is like, come on, give us a bit of love there. So if you're listening to this, tweet it out and let the people know. Anyway, we'll move on. We used to
the poor us segment is over.
It's weird, right? It's weird. I think we're due this week to break our biggest year ever on the podcast in terms of numbers, like for the whole year, and we're in August. So that's not bad. So we've another 4 months to go in this year, and we'll just be taken away. So it's our numbers have actually been absolutely crazy this year. I don't know what's after happening, but yeah, since around this time last year, our numbers have just gone like absolutely through the roof. So shout out to everyone as well who've been supporting us. You've been absolutely fucking delicious, as a famous TikToker would say. So fair play to you.